Hi there, this is a quick follow-up to my preceding video on all of the new spy photos we're getting out of House of the Dragon Season 2 filming in Caceres, Spain this week. Since that video we've gotten a couple of new spy photos. They're mostly just refinements of the ones we already had blurry, so this is audio only. I'm just posting up the really good shot we had of Alicent and Helaena in this. Now, full spoilers ahead, we're talking about Blood and Cheese. Turn back now, that the Blood and Cheese assassination is probably going to happen in Episode 2 because we heard leaks that Episode 3 is this procession we see in the spy photos through the streets of King's Landing. It's the funeral procession for Helena's son, young Jaehaerys, after he gets assassinated by Blood and Cheese. And there's just slightly better photos of it, that it's not just Alicent, it's Alicent and Helaena. And I don't think anyone has really asked this question before. It's not so much what Helaena is doing, but what she isn't doing. That in the books, after her 6-year-old son is decapitated in front of her, Helaena goes completely insane. Irrecoverably. That she becomes near catatonic, she is just a wreck, she is half there. On a scale of the next year and a half, she is just gone, and to the point the book says they functionally killed her. That she was never the same person again, she went completely insane from all the grief. And we in this invent, I think it's a good idea to invent this as a propaganda thing. They're having a funeral for Jaehaerys, this procession throughout the city of look what Rhaenyra did. She looks pretty functional. If you think about it, she doesn't look disheveled. I mean, obviously she's grief-stricken. Alicent is grief-stricken. But she doesn't look like this non-functional wreck. I mean, the trope, the comparison that everyone keeps pointing out is obviously the trope of Ophelia from Hamlet after her father Polonius gets killed and she turns into a complete insane wreck. The version I'm thinking of in my head, and there's multiple good Hamlet versions, is the 1990 movie where Ophelia was played by Helena Bonham Carter. And everyone was in that. I mean, not just that Mel Gibson was Hamlet in it, but like Glenn Close was Gertrude, Ian Holm was Ophelia's father Polonius in that, and Horatio in that 1990 Hamlet was played by Stephen Delane. A young Stephen Delane. Stannis. So everyone was in that Hamlet production. But I'm thinking of the way they showed her just half here, half cognizant, off in her own world, completely shot, insane. The Ophelia. That's how the books handled Helaena. But we see her reasonably functional here, and I'm starting to think on the contrast of this isn't what she's like in the book. She would not have been functional enough to be in court, much less in this funeral procession, even if other people are dressing her and stuff. And maybe she's almost catatonic if, like, people are dressing her and she's just sitting there really withdrawn with her mother. But even then, it was worse than this in the books. Thinking on it, I'm starting to suspect they might have drastically rewritten Helaena, because they kind of already did. And not in a bad way. That, even Martin has said, like, some of these it was an outline, that some of these are better ideas when you refine it. That, like, even Martin has said the Viserys of Season 1 is this King Lear-like figure is better than the one I did. There's elements of it in there, that he's this jovial, nice guy, but as his reign wears on, his health declines, bad things happen, and you play around with, well, it's the unreliable narrator, if this is how historians remember it, that it's a history book written a century later. Well, they exaggerated he was this fat guy who loved balls and parties. He was nice. He wasn't like it. That it fits well enough. Obviously, it's a different. Martin said it's a different take on it, but it's playing around with, well, history distorted what really happened, I guess. Even so, but all the histories recount that Helaena was functionally gone after this assassination. She is near catatonic insane. And they're not doing that. That they rewrote Helaena from being this, they said she wasn't the prettiest girl ever as like this stunning beauty, but she was attractive enough in the way a mother is that, okay, she'd make a good mother, and she was, and generally everyone liked her because she was good-natured. That's relatively boring compared to the TV show made Helaena on the autistic spectrum, which isn't that big of an invention because there's a justification for it in the book. In the book, it is very clear that her daughter is on the autistic spectrum. Jaehaera, the twin sister of Jaehaerys, who we see very briefly in season 1. They don't have speaking lines yet. It'll be interesting if they show her being like her mother. But what the TV show did was go, well, it's really interesting to have a character like that, so the mother was like the daughter. It's based on something in the story. I think that's a good idea. And, I've asked, like Elio and Linda in the forums and stuff, did Martin say Jaehaera was on the autistic spectrum? He said basically, yeah, but, Westeros doesn't have a word for that. But if they did, they would speculate that she was. It's a thing that their medicine doesn't have. But, okay, we're presenting Helaena like that, and they overlapped it with that she's, this Cassandra-type figure, that she's got the Targaryen propensity for prophetic dreams really big, that her father had one really impactful prophetic dream that motivated the rest of his life. That he had a dream that his son was on the Iron Throne. He said it was too real to be a dream. It was a prophecy. That everything they worked in with her I thought was really interesting. Fia Saban is a good actress. She's from The Last Kingdom. That they put together a pretty interesting character, and it's so weird when you see people confused at why do people like Helaena so much. Well, it's an interesting take. Not just Fia Saban, but also I miss that we only got the young character for 2 episodes. That they're both similar, but there's distinctions. Nonetheless, that we've seen that they are willing to rewrite TV Helaena to be very different from what happened in the books. And looking at these spy photos, it does not seem that she goes catatonic after Blood and Cheese. Grieving, withdrawn a bit, maybe, but not full-on Ophelia mode. Which leads to questions of what are they going to do with her for the rest of the story, because I've already said, spoilers here, that her eventual death, I'm not going to give specifics on, but there's multiple versions of it. And that some just say she was so catatonic that she stumbled out of a window, and others say that no, she was assassinated. And they're really not going with the she was catatonic and insane thing here. So is this, I'll go out on a limb here, did Larry Strong, are they going to say Larry Strong killed Helaena to frame Rhaenyra? Because in the TV version, it doesn't look like Helaena is so incognizant that she would kill herself by throwing her out of a window. And because, remember, Clubfoot is playing both sides. So, we'll see what happens with this. I don't know what's going to happen. But looking at these spy photos, something others haven't remarked on, which clicked with me, is Helaena isn't doing what Book Helaena did after Blood and Cheese. And they've already been willing to rewrite this character in ways that I felt were more interesting. And, it's annoying that we never really had dialogue between Rhaenyra and Helaena, even though they're half-sisters. And, they sort of imply in the books that, everyone got along with Helaena pretty well, even Rhaenyra, that she'd always pointedly say, my half-brother, Aegon. But she'd say, my sweet sister, Helaena. I think it's that everyone is kind of weary around her, but it would be nice to see that it shows you the family dynamic, that she barely interacts with Alicent's children, even though they're technically the opposing sides, because it's really Rhaenyra versus Alicent. So I've rambled here for a bit. I'm making a longer follow-up video on other spy photos. We got better spy photos of the Jaehaerys funeral procession, along with some surprising details on what Alicent and Helaena end up doing in it. That there was new information of the things they're saying, the stuff that happens in Flea Bottom. Follow me after the jump into the next video about that.